Good morning, good morning. I don't normally play music on my videos because YouTube wants to like, like strike your videos or not, post your videos, so I don't usually play music, but I just wanted to play some music this morning. Um, Before we get into our chapter 14 on problem solving, you can't let your problems be a problem. And that's very, very important. And we're on chapter 14. And if you've been following the videos, I really do hope and pray that you've been getting something out of these videos. And if you have any suggestions or other videos that you would like to hear or see from me, please post them in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber. I love that when people come by, stop by, and read the video, listen to the videos, and they leave comments and say that they got something out of it, or amen, or a thumbs up, or it's inspiring. I want to be inspiring and always, and none of us are perfect, so I just want you to know that I truly appreciate everybody that stops by and watches my videos. I don't go live as often as I would like to because, like I said, I have a busy schedule, and pursuing your higher level of education is not always an easy task. It's a lot of studying, a lot of work, and if you want to succeed, you have to take a hold of what your goal is and work hard and do diligence, be diligent in what you're doing to pursue your goal. Pursuing my education means a lot to me because that means that I can be a better person for other people, and that I can help other people and provide answers that some people may be seeking and they don't know, and are even helping them to just live a more excellent way. So going back to school is not just about my own personal preference, but it's about helping other people and being a better person overall for humanity. And I hope that people can relate to that, because sometimes people go back to school to make more money, or for notoriety, and that's fine. But for me, I've always stayed true to my game. And years ago, when I was younger, and I had just gotten my certification in human services. My oldest brother, who had COVID, last year, but he recovered. And I thank God for him. He's been a good mentor to me over the years. And he said to me, what next? And I told him I wanted to continue my education. And although I went back to school later on in life, my son was almost 12. Just some things, we go through stuff, and I'm a veteran. I was in the service before. So all I'm saying, I've been to business college. So all I'm saying is, whatever your goal is, whatever your age is, if that's your goal, to be able to be a better person for your children, for your family, for your friends, for whoever you're helping, your job, or for even to be able to be a better person at church, to teach and to help people and to mentor overall for the younger people, and even some people that may be around your age or may be older than you. It is always a good thing, if you're able to do it, is to always be teachable and always continue your learning, no matter how you get that learning, but make sure it's positive and it's going to be an example for others and a beacon to let your light shine for other people. And so I appreciate everyone that stops by my channel. And I know it's not always popular to talk about positive things. And some people may think, oh, I just know this and I know that, and I don't need to hear that. But what about the people that don't know it? So if you don't need to hear it, how about sharing it with somebody else that may need to hear it? How about sharing it with the younger generation, the Gen Zs, that are saying that there's not good role models out there? There are good role models. Seek and you shall find. And if we can be those role models that don't need the information, but we can share it with someone else, I would appreciate that as well. So again, I thank everybody to stopping by my channel, and I want to support other people's channel when they're providing good information. And how do we learn? By seeking other information. So with that being said, I truly appreciate everyone, and we're going to get started in the video, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the music. And so it says right here, John C. Maxwell in chapter 14, he's talking about problem solving, and he says you can't let your problems be a problem. So if you have problems, you have to figure out a way to solve them and not let them be a problem. because we all have problems, but how we solve them and how we tackle them and how we look at them and the attitude that we have towards the problem can help us to not allow our problems to be a problem. And so you can measure a leader by the problem he tackles, the problems he tackles. He always looks for ones his own size. This is John C. Maxwell. So when you know that you have a problem that you can solve, then don't procrastinate, solve that problem. But if it's a problem bigger than you, you have to be able as a leader to recognize when the problem is bigger than you and you need a hand at someone helping you tackle that problem. There are some things that are just too big for us, and a lot of times we need to turn it over to Jesus and say, Lord, this problem is just too big for me, but I know that it's not too big for you, because you can do exceedingly and abundantly, and no problem is too big for you to solve. And that's how we have to tackle these problems that are too big for us. And John Foster Dulles, former Secretary of State, and now I might have pronounced it incorrect. It could be Dulles or Dulles, or Dulles, but it's John Foster, Dulles, and he's the former Secretary of State. And he says the measure of success is not whether you have a tough problem to deal with, but whether it is the same problem you had last year. And you know what? There's a lot of people that are still facing the same problems from 2020. And as I said before, the problems that were in 2020 was a compilation, because most of us have been through a lot of the things that went on prior to 2020, except really this major pandemic. But we've been through other situations, the HN1 flu and the Ebola virus. We've been through those things. But however, if you are dealing with the same problem that you had last year, it's time to take a look and see why your problem is still your problem, and that you have allowed that problem to still be a problem. And so he's going to give us some tools in chapter 14 to see how we can figure out how to stop letting our problems be a problem. So we always want to look at fleshing it out. Effective leaders like Sam Walton always rise to a challenge. That's one of the things that separate winners from whiners. While other retailers complain about the competition, Walton rose above it by solving his problems with creativity and tenacity. And no matter what a field a leader is in, so it don't matter what field you're in as a leader, you will face problems. They are inevitable for three reasons. First, we live in a world of growing complexity and diversity, and that is so true. There is a lot of things that are complex, and one of the things that I've seen that has become so complex is relationships, how people are cohabiting and they're not even taking marriage as an option anymore. They're taking it off of the table, but yet and still relationships have become so complex that you see so many issues with children being born and the parents not co-parenting together, and they're making these babies and they're not even considering why they're doing it, but they're doing it. And things have just become so complex. And that's just an example of one of the complex issues of the world. Even political fields have become so complex. We see that even in the Capitol, the complex issues that went on have become so complex. And second, we interact with people. That's one of the things, is interacting with other people. You are going to interact with so many different people. The world has become so diverse when it comes to humans. And so therefore, that's the second thing, the interaction. How do we interact? How do we keep a good attitude even when we're solving our problems, even when we're going through them? What type of attitude do you have going through your problems when you're in the problem and you're dealing with it? Do you have a good attitude? Is your attitude positive? Do you have an attitude of tenacity to keep moving forward? And third, we cannot control all the situations we face. And that's so true. There is sometimes, have you met a person? I have, that wants to control everything. They want to control every situation. And that's hard to do. We cannot control every situation. We cannot save the world. We can try, but we cannot save the world. And we definitely can't do it alone. We need others to help us. We need others to help us save the world. And not even just the world, but starting small and someone helping us save our communities that are deteriorating or that have already deteriorated. How can we bring them back? You've seen inspirational stories of people bringing back, their communities. How can we do that? Or bringing back their school system, or a school that was run down and dilapidated, and the people got together in the community and said, we're going to give our time and our resources to help. I'll get the paint, or we'll get Home Depot or Lowe's to donate the paint. And we'll get some drywall, and we'll put our efforts together. And what about Habitat for Humanity? We see so many times that we can't control all situations, but we can be a source, a positive source, and a solution to the ones that we face, instead of continually being a problem. Because if you're not helping solve the problem, then you're certainly going to be the problem. And that's the thing we're talking about, is don't let your problems be a problem. And then it says leaders with good problem solving ability demonstrate 5 qualities. So let's talk about those 5 qualities. Number 1, they anticipate problems. You have to anticipate problems. You can never say, oh my God, why do I have problems? You're going to have problems as a leader, and you have to be able to anticipate them and think outside the box and be creative in your thinking. And remember back the first video that I did with my board, being creative and still finding a way to solve that problem. See, since problems are inevitable, good leaders anticipate them. Anyone who expects the road to be easy will continually find himself in trouble. See, this road we understand that we're traveling on is not easy, but with the grace of God, He will give us that tenacity, that endurance, and that perseverance to keep moving. And we got to know that it's in line with Him. And anything for the good of God's people, to help God to help people, God's people, that's a good thing. When it's aligned with His will and His word, that's a good thing. Because see, God doesn't need any help, but we do. We need help. So anything that can help God's people, and I'll make that clear, to help God's people, that's a good thing. And it says that I heard a story about David Livingstone, the missionary to Africa, that illustrates the kind of attitude leaders need. A mission organization wanted to send helpers to Dr. Livingstone. So its leader wrote, "Have you found a good road to where you are? If so, we want to send other men to join you." Livingstone replied, "If you have men who will come only if they know there is a good road, I don't want them." See, every road is not always going to be a good road. But if you're willing to fix the road, you'll be able to drive down it. If you're willing to fix the bridge, you're able to drive across it. Or if you're willing to help build a bridge, then others will be able to follow you and cross the bridge. Whether they cross it with you hand in hand, or whether they are a stranger that uses that bridge to cross it at another time. And some people will discover a bridge, but we got to be willing to flesh it out and to anticipate the needs. Because if you're just looking for something that's already fixed, there is no need. They don't need you for something that's already fixed, but they need you for something that needs to be repaired. So when we look at how we deal with our problems, do we allow our problems to continually be a problem, or do we take action? And see, he says, I want men who will come even if there's no road at all. If you keep your attitude positive but plan for the worst, you'll find yourself in a good position to solve problems that come your way. And number 2, they accept the truth. People respond to problems in these ways. They refuse to accept them, they accept them and then put up with them, or they accept them and try to make things better. How are you handling your problems? Are you in denial and refusing to accept that it's a problem? Or are you accepting them and you're just putting up with it? Oh, I'm just putting up with that problem. My leg hurts and I'm putting up with it. But I haven't went to the doctor. You know what I mean? That's an example. I'm dealing with some pain here, but I'm just dealing with it. I just decided to accept it because it's never going to go away. But that's not even having hope. What about your attitude? Hey, I know this pain is going to go away. I'm going to get it done, see about it, and I'm going to keep an attitude of gratitude that God's going to heal that pain that's been troubling me. You know, like that thorn in the side where Paul asked God to remove, and he said no. But there are times that God will remove that thorn in the side, that pain. But you got to be willing and to have a good attitude about it. And he says, and leaders must always do the latter, which means try to make them better. Try to make your problems better by making it not be a problem. And even if it's still a problem, but you're working on solving it, that's good news. That's a good thing. Broadcaster Paul Harvey said, in times like these, it is good to remember that there have always been times like these. See, there's always been times like these. Like I said, we didn't have to wait to 2020 to see the stuff that went on, because we can go back years and decades, especially if you've been around and you're in your 40s, 50s, late 40s, 50s. We don't have to wait to 1 year to see the things that's been going on. There's been times like these. And see, no leader can simultaneously have his head in the sand and navigate his people through troubled waters. Because if your head is in the sand, you're not navigating anything because it's buried in the sand. And usually when your head is down, all you can see, if your eyes is open, is what's down beneath you. And if your eyes are closed, you can't see anything. So effective leaders face up to the reality of a situation. They face up to it. They accept that, face up to it, and they are not in denial about it. And then they see the big picture. Leaders must continually see the big picture. They cannot afford to be overwhelmed by emotion. Now that they allow themselves to get so bogged down in the details that they lose sight of what's important. Arthur Alfred Armand Monapert wrote, "The majority see the obstacles. The few see the objectives. History records the successes of the latter, while oblivion is the reward of the former." Some people live in oblivion. And I've heard sometimes people say that. You're living in oblivion. And it's like, you got to come out and face your problems. And number 4, they handle one thing at a time. Richard Slomer has this advice: never try to solve all the problems at once. Make them line up for you one by one. The leaders who get into trouble most often are the ones who are overwhelmed by the sheer size or volume of their troubles and then dabble at problem solving. You can't dabble at problem solving. Dabble in here, dabble in there, because you don't ever solve the problem. If you're faced with lots of problems, make sure you really solve the one you're working on before moving on to the next one. Make sure that first problem you're working on is solved. Because if you don't solve that problem and you just jump and dabble and go to the next, you still have the same problem. And then it's being a problem to your problems. And number 5, they don't give up a major goal when they're down. Effective leaders understand the peak-to-peak principle. They make major decisions when they are experiencing a positive swing in their leadership, not during the dark times. As NFL fullback Bob Christian says, "I never decide whether it's time to retire during training camp." He knows not to give up when he is in the valley. See, sometimes it's hard when we're training. Basic training. If you are a veteran or you've been in the service, so you know what basic training was like. A lot of us was in the valley. We were in the valley, but that attitude, perseverance, and getting through the problems that they put before us. So don't give up when you're in the training camp. Because if you look at, I'm just in training right now, but I'm not going to give up. Because one day I will no longer be in training. You got to look at it from that perspective. So don't give up while you're in training. Excuse me. Don't give up. Your police officer that has to go through the academy or flight school, whatever you're doing, or you're in school and you're training, you're learning. You can't give up. Don't give up. And reflecting on it, let's reflect on this. Arthur George Matthew Adams stated, what you think means more than anything else in your life, more than what you earn, more than where you live, more than your social position, and more than what anyone else may think about you. Every problem introduces you to yourself. It shows you how you think and what you're made of. When you come face to face with a problem, how do you react? Do you ignore it and hope it'll go away? And sometimes, we see the problem, say, don't make a big deal out of it. But if it keeps coming back, you need to look into it. Don't sit there and just ignore something. Look into it to see if it's really a problem. And do you feel powerless to solve it? Have you had such bad experiences trying to solve problems in the past that you've just given up? Or do you tackle them willingly? The ability to solve problems effectively comes from experience facing and overcoming obstacles. Each time you solve another problem, you get a little better at the process. The more problems that you solve, the more you get better at solving problems. But if you never try, fail, and try again, you'll never be good at it. No one has always succeeded at solving their problems the first time. You have to keep trying. And sometimes we fail, but we get up. And we fail, and we get up. We fall down, but we get up. That's important. Tenacity, perseverance, and endurance. Because we got to keep moving forward. We got to keep moving forward. We can't let our problems be a problem. And then we want to bring it home. We want to bring it on home because we need to bring it on home. We need to bring it on home. And because the sun went down through my window, it was getting dark. So I wanted to turn the light on. But bringing it home, to improve your problem solving, we got to do the following. Look for trouble. If you've been avoiding problems, go out looking for them. Because if you've been avoiding them, then you know that they're there. If you've been avoiding problems, then you know that they're there. And most of the time, if you go looking for it, you already know it's there and you're going to find it. It won't be that hard to find. So he says you'll only get better if you gain experience dealing with them. So don't avoid your problems. Find situations that need fixing. Come up with several viable solutions and then take them to a leader with good problem-solving experience. And that's good. Because when you're in leadership, and if you're not the CEO or the director, but you're in leadership, supervisor or manager, and you see these problems and you come up with some solutions before you take it to your leadership. That way, they can see that you're serious about problem solving for issues that may be in your work area, or whatever task that you're working on or project, and even in your home when you see problems. And say you're with your spouse and you take it and say, this is a problem. Or maybe your children or a child is having problems and you sit down and talk about it and say, this is some solutions I've come up with. You'll learn from his decisions how he thinks when handling difficulty. So you'll learn from your leader, or you'll learn, from your leader, how they think when handling difficulties. And then develop a method. Some people have a hard time solving problems because they don't know how to tackle them. Try using the TEACH process. TEACH, the TEACH process. So he tells us, number one, time, TIME. Spend time to discover the real issue. And that means maybe writing down things, going out on the floor, getting out of your office, watching, shadowing, just looking and being out there on the front end. And even if you have to jump on and get in it and maybe even help a patient, checking them in, or helping a customer with a transaction. But there are things that you need to do, spending time to discover the real issue. You can't discover the real issue stuck in a closet or in your office or in a room alone and isolated. You can't spend time discovering the real issue if you don't get out there. And then exposure. Find what others have done. Talk to other colleagues or other people or other parents. Find out what they've done. And then assistance. Have your team study all angles. Give them something to do and have them to look at all angles. That's a good way to come up with solutions and viable solutions. And don't be afraid to give credit where credit is due. Don't be afraid to thank your team or whoever comes up with the viable solutions and then they come up with one and it works. Don't be afraid to thank them because they are an asset to the team. And don't be afraid to give them accolades and say, hey, we appreciate all of the effort of every team member, but this is the solution that we're going to go with. And the team members celebrate all together, including the leader, that team member. But just don't be afraid to give credit where credit is due. And creativity. Brainstorm multiple solutions. Brainstorm multiple solutions. And then implement, hit it. That's what it's saying. Hit it. Implement the best solution. I was like looking at that going, but it's hit it. Implement the best solution. So TEACH. And then surround yourself with problem solvers. If you aren't a good problem solver, bring others on your team who are. They will immediately complement your weaknesses and you will also learn from them. And we talked about that in prior videos. And then the daily takeaway. Boxer Gene Tunney won the World Heavyweight Championship by beating Jack Dempsey. Most people don't know that when Tunney started his boxing career, he was a power puncher. But before turning pro, he broke both hands. His doctor and manager told him he would never be a world champion as a result, but that didn't deter him. If I can't become a champion as a puncher, he said, I'll make it as a boxer. He learned and he became one of the most skillful boxers ever to become champion. Never allow others to put obstacles in the pathway to your dreams. And one of the things I can share with you is one of my brothers in high school, we're 8 months apart, and his left lung collapsed. He was running, I believe, cross country, and his left lungs collapsed. But he was like me, always participating in different sports. And the doctor told him he would never run again. But if he had allowed that obstacle to be put in his pathway, he would have never, ever made it to the first trial of the Olympics. My brother made it to the first trial of the Olympics, although he didn't make the other times, but he did make it to the first trial. And we know Jackie Joyner. We know a lot of athletes because we come from that area. And so all I'm saying to you is don't ever let anyone put obstacles in your dreams. Don't ever let anyone stop you. And he still runs to this day, and he's coaching his children. My brother is an awesome brother. And for him never to give up, and for us as his family never to give up on him, for him to pursue his dreams, we just say, embrace your team, celebrate each other, your family members, and don't forget Don't let your problems be your problem. God bless you all on today.